Ah, finally a game that represents my dating life. I never have enough matches. In today's humble opinion, we're aware of the fact that winter is coming in The Long Dark. This game is 100% unadulterated depression passed off and marketed as a video game. It's cold, it's lonely, it's fucking brutal, and it makes me want to kill myself. If someone asks you what it's like to be depressed, look at them, shake off the lingering disbelief that anyone in this world could ever experience happiness, and hand them a copy of The Long Dark. That would pretty much sum things up. Whew, okay, that was undeservedly harsh. I think it's safe to say at this point that I am not a person that understands the draw or the merit of survival sandbox games. The Humble Monthly just keeps sending them my way though, so here we are. This is in no way meant to be a criticism of the game or the developers, I just feel it's necessary to present you with my bias so you can see the lens through which I'm viewing things. That being said, The Long Dark is the best survival sandbox game that I've ever played. Not so much that it's shifted my perspective on the genre, but it does handle a few of my key complaints in ways that make it a bit more palatable. The main problem that it still suffers from is no different than any other game remotely similar to it. That is to say, it requires a relatively high level of initial investment to capitalize on any sense of reward. If you go back and watch any of my other reviews on survival games, you'll think I sound like a broken record. Now, what I mean by this is, of course, that you have to spend a lot of time playing the game before you have anything to show for it. In my case, I spent about 5 hours playing it and never found enough scrap metal to craft basic tools. Now you might be thinking, hey, don't play it on hard, dipshit, to which I would reply, that's normal mode, bud. Now, they do offset this a little bit by including an autosave feature so that instead of losing everything, you lose about 10 minutes or so, but that also kind of works against itself because if you spend 10 minutes finding absolutely nothing and then die, you already know how pointless your next 10 minutes are going to be. There's nothing to be gained from redoing what you've already done, you're just kind of out that time of your life. And there's no real feedback on what you should do instead because all other choices are equally as likely to be shitty. So every time you die, you have an existential crisis and the list of games that you could be playing instead flashes through your mind. Then you start making 10-minute hikes up dangerous mountains to investigate radio towers where you find these huge storage containers and think for sure there's some scrap metal in there. It's at the top of this mountain, it's a unique location, there's nothing else here, so it can't be empty. But you're wrong, and you're dying. So you do what any sane person would do in that situation and decide to fucking end it all. My next complaint is that the controls aren't very intuitive. I spent a good 20 minutes trying to figure out how to start a fire. It wasn't in the inventory screen or in the crafting portion of the screen like most other survival games, so I actually resorted to throwing the items on the ground and trying to light them manually. Unsurprisingly, I'm an idiot that way. That and a lot of other stuff are actually tucked away on the spacebar, which opens a radial contextual menu for a lot of necessary items. That's right, the universal jump button for first-person games is a contextual wheel. Now you might be thinking, if you tried jumping, as many people do in video games, you would have found the radial context menu. It's usually the first thing people try. In fact, they usually just jump from place to place instead of walking. That seems like a pretty intuitive place to put it to me. Yeah, well how about you just shut up about that, guy? You think you're so smart coming into my video telling me how to run shit? Yeah, you're probably right, that's on me. Ironically, once I learned that I couldn't jump, I tried jumping infinitely more often. Crazy how nature does that. All that being said, there are quite a few things that The Long Dark does right and genuinely sets it apart from the rest in fantastic ways. The emphasis on surviving the elements over other players or even dangerous threats, for example, makes it feel like something closer to true survival experiences. You're not trying to build a fort, you're mostly focusing on finding pre-made structures suitable for the night so that you can continue to push forward in the unforgiving world. In fact, your biggest enemy in the game is what I assume is some weather wizard hiding out in the shittiest mountain hovel with a directive of making your life a living hell. You can't stay out for long and your clothing stats are based on how warm they keep you, how easily the wind penetrates them, and how much they restrict your movement. On top of that, they can get wet or even freeze, which ultimately starts to harm you more than it helps. Then there's the weather wizard's bitch boy, the chronomancer, who makes it so every time you perform an action, time advances. This sort of makes everything a luxury that you can't really afford, but you've got to figure out how to make it work. If you try to play it with the same priorities as that which you play in other games like it, it'll put you on your ass. Another good decision that they made was incorporating a story mode in which the survival mechanics felt natural in. The world is still huge, living and breathing, but having a sense of direction and purpose gives it a much needed sense of balance. Even though the game pissed me off, I still find myself considering playing it again just to see if I can progress the story, but I don't think so. Right after this old blind woman tried shooting a gun at me, I reminded her how blind she is, and well, this is my house now. I think she was plot critical and I'm not going to restart. Normally you can find The Long Dark on the Steam store for the price of $34.99, at which point I would say that you have lost me. Like, I know it's still got a lot of story on the way and that it's pretty well handled, but I don't know that I'd be willing to shell out that kind of dough. $25 feels a bit more reasonable for my tastes, but again, I don't like these kinds of things, so take that as you will. The lowest it's ever been on sale is $6.79, at which point I'd say you should definitely check it out if you're on the market for a brutal single-player survival game with an emphasis on survival. Gameplay for The Long Dark earns a 9 out of 10 for being the best survival game that I've ever played. That doesn't mean I like it, but I do enjoy the direction that it's headed in. The story is an excellent addition, and its balance with the actual gameplay mechanics is excellent. Then it's got various levels of difficulty, both for the campaign and for survival mode, one of which makes it harder as you play through it, so there's plenty of challenges to mold your personal experience. It's got a lot going for it, and it's pretty refreshing. Thank you everyone for watching, and a special thanks to Hinterland Studio for making this excellent take on the genre. You guys really hit the nail on the head for what I think games like this need to be. Not really my cup of tea, but I mean it when I say that you've got something special here, and I might play it on easy mode just to get the story. I'm thoroughly impressed. Until next time, remember that failure is not the worst case scenario, to glow on with your bad selves, and to stay awesome.